With Charlie Kirk, for example, so there's something they do when they debate. And this is something that people don't understand. And I think it's a reason why a lot of people end up looking silly when they try to debate like a Charlie Kirk or whatever, which is the more obvious it is that Charlie Kirk is wrong, the more you need to prepare. They say things that are wrong, and you have to know what the wrong thing is and why.
How was the experience with Jordan Peterson for you?
It was hilarious.
Welcome to Insanity. Great to have you on
Thank you
board.
for having me.
I feel such a fresh breeze of air when I see people like you who think for themselves and who want to change things up and to move something in society, in other people, make them think for themselves too. So I really appreciate you. I appreciate what you do. I found you through this video with Jordan Peterson when you had this debate, obviously, the big one. I thought it's so revealing. It's so interesting to see how, if you go deeper into belief, what's there, what can remain there after you ask all the questions. And you can kind of see that sometimes something's left and sometimes not. That's what I just saw a lot in this episode. And yeah, so I decided to invite you and to ask you what makes you do what you do, what makes you passionate about debates, why did you become a content creator? So I'd love to learn more about you.
Of course. Yeah. Well, first of all, I love the idea of your podcast and the idea of, being different, being okay. I'm very unusual in certain ways. And I think it's one of those things where it's like when you're a kid, it's really not fun to be different because people kind of, hone in on it. But if you manage to preserve what makes you different into adulthood, suddenly you become a very interesting person. And so I think it's great to, fight to keep our kind of, things that make us unique. Yeah, in terms of why I'm on Jubilee, it's actually really funny. It kind of is an accident. So it's this kind of funny story that starts with my husband really likes Jeopardy. And so I applied to Jeopardy, even though I would not be a good person on that show. But I was like, he likes the show. So wouldn't it be funny if I went on his favorite show? Did not get onto Jeopardy, which I think was the right call for the Jeopardy folks. But it got me onto a casting mailing list. And so I would occasionally get emails since then, like, apply to this, apply to this. So from that, I got onto this show called the Mr. Beast Games. And then someone I met on that cast told me to apply to Jubilee. And so it's all just been sort of by accident. On Jubilee, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to, a bunch of people. So many people tune in to the videos, both on the Jubilee channel and then when like clips go around. And I think that, since these videos are being made, having people go on who really try their best to do a good job is going to improve the outcome. So I approached Jubilee from this sort of like almost like educational perspective. And then also it's just kind of a crazy experience to go on these videos. And I live right near where the videos are. I'm like 30 minutes away from where they film the videos. So it's really easy for me.
I thought it's so impressive because like for me, I'm new to the US and I'm new to many of the topics that are discussed in their depth. I mean, of course, I know that religion exists. Of course, I know that there are certain issues in the world, but they are currently way more discussed right here, right now. I really value these shows and these debates a lot because as you said, I learn a lot. It's like educational purposes for me.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about the Jubilee debates, at least the ones that I've been on, is that typically you will see kind of the most like the most dedicated people on each side, right? Like you'll see somebody who really, 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 really thinks this thing and another person who really, 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 really doesn't. And so it's sort of I think if you were to just talk to, average people in the United States, most people would not have opinions that are as strong as what you see on Jubilee. But most likely, anyone you meet is listening to opinions that are as strong as what you hear on Jubilee, if that makes sense. So I feel like Jubilee gives you a good sense of that.
But I think you are someone who has a very strong opinion, right?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I, what's really funny is that I'd say I have a very, at least in the United States context, I have a very left-wing opinion. For Europe, it might be more of a mainstream opinion.
Yes.
But I would say that in the United States lens, I'm very much like a leftist.
Mhm.
And as part of being a leftist, I or one of the beliefs that would lead me to categorize myself as a leftist is I think that there's a lot of kind of stuff going on that messes with people's heads. I think that if you look at social media algorithms, I think if you look at, like the Republican Party, I think if you look at a lot of stuff on TV, I feel like there is this sort of constant um, constant influence that we keep that we encounter everywhere that tells us to think about things a certain way, right?
Yeah.
So when I meet somebody, typically when I meet somebody who thinks something that I think is like ridiculous, but I also believe that there is this sort of effort to make them think that, it doesn't really seem fair or even logical to go like, "Oh, you're a horrible person then." You know what I mean? Because it's like
Yes.
if I believe in this effort to mess with people, then if I meet somebody who's been messed with, um, I should at least start from a place of sort of compassion. When I'm on Jubilee, what's kind of interesting is some of the people I've talked to on there, I would say they are the people who are to blame for that. They're
Really.
oftentimes the people who are like making the content that's really harmful, or they work at
Hmm.
like a big organization that does bad stuff, and but I still kind of trick myself into liking who I'm talking to while I'm talking to them, because I feel like the audience won't necessarily understand why if I'm like rude. And if all they see, like I'd say the rule for me, the rule for how I interact with people is very respectful and kind and friendly. If all they see, if all the Jubilee audience sees is the exception to the rule, they'll think the exception is the rule. You know what I mean? And so I try really hard, even though I have very strong opinions and I stick to those opinions. I try very hard to like friendly and nice to meet you and shaking hands. And it's very intentional because, yeah, I do have very strong opinions.
I could see that. And this was one of the reasons why I really wanted to talk to you because I thought that you would be very kind. Because I could see how, of course, you disagree with Jordan Peterson, but you had this incredible standing and kindness, and you were just not treating him poorly. And I like that.
Yeah. Thank
Um,
you.
yeah, that's important to me because I currently think that there is so much division going on. And although I do have strong opinions and I understand where I stand, I kind of feel that we are currently all in a point where we exclude each other even
Mhm.
further. So it's becoming difficult to leave, let's say, one group, a community that is already accepting you with probably your previous values, or probably you didn't have real values, but you're accepted somewhere. And you think, oh, maybe I would like to explore XYZ, but then I would
Yeah.
lose the support of my community. And if
Yep.
you're not welcomed in the other one, and if people are rude to you, kind of only confirm this belief and you scare them away. So it doesn't actually
Mhm.
help anyone.
There's a story someone told me that supports your point completely. So, this is somebody I met like a few months ago, and she was in a very extreme religious movement.
Hmm.
She called it a cult, and I'm taking her word for it, right? And as part of this, they had to go around and knock on strangers' doors and ask them to, like do different things, right? Like ban abortion, for example. And she said that a lot of times she would knock on
Yeah.
people's doors and they would say like, F off, you're crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but what that didn't bother her because what she had been taught was that that's how people are, right? The people who disagree with me on this are just like evil people, right? What
Mm-hmm.
really messed with her was she knocked on some people's doors and they were like, hey, I'm really, I have the opposite position as you, and you're not going to convince me of this. But hey, you seem really nice and it's really hot outside. Do you want to come in for a bit, have a drink of water? And
Oh.
that for her, that like broke her brain. She was like, wait, why are they being
Mm.
nice to me? And it's her story to tell, but my understanding of her story when she told it to me was that that sort of formed the first cracks between her and changing her mind.
Yeah.
Um, and like the wall between her and changing her mind. And yeah, I think that there's a problem when like if you want to join a new group, like a new group of people, right? Whether that's a workplace or whether that's a sports team, right? Maybe you want to become a fan of a new sports team, or maybe it's a different religion or whatever. And you think that the people in that group are like really mean and they hate you and they hate anyone who who thinks like you, which is probably most of the people
Hmm.
that's going to be a barrier. So that's exactly what you. So I. That's. I'm staying. I'm saying exactly what you just said. So I completely agree with you.
Thank you, because not for agreeing, but for giving me this example. Because, oops, what's this? Sorry, my lamp.
Okay. That's
Uh,
okay.
oh, I turned it off. Yeah, for giving me this example, basically, because this helps me to react better next time. Because when I am in the situation, someone knocks on my door and comes up with religion, I'm so fast at just saying no thanks and closing it again, you know?
Yeah.
And that happens so fast, and I don't want to be like that.
Well, I mean, it also the other thing too is it's understandable, right? Like I think it's very commendable to be so kind to people. I also think at the same time it's fair to say, well, um, I'm going if you vote and you tell your friends to vote, and
Yeah.
then you communicate information to people who are kind of just on the fence, right? Like for the same amount of effort it could take you to really make an impression on like one person who's just completely like loony,
Hmm.
that same amount of effort, you could get like 30 or 40 people who already just mostly agree with you, but just need that extra little push, right? So I think it's also just totally understandable to be like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, gotta go. But if you do want to put in the effort to, show that extra little bit of like kindness and stuff, I think it really can do something. My friend Oliver, who's also been in a couple
Yeah, yeah.
Jubilee videos, yeah, he said that it's like putting a pebble in someone's shoe,
I've
where it's
heard
like you,
that.
yeah, you
Yeah.
give them something where it's like that doesn't quite sit with what they think, and it just annoys them a little. Like, what is that? Like, why, And then maybe down the line, it helps them.
Yes, yes, and I want to do that because I've tried different things. I'm not here for a long time yet, but I've tried different things and I tried to talk to people and try to understand better. I also saw that if I'm being a little bit sarcastic, even people don't really get it right, and they don't want
Yeah,
that, and they feel attacked so easily, which was difficult for me to understand because I'm a quite lighthearted person, so I can say things in a lighthearted way and even like sarcastically, but I don't really intend to be offensive or anything. But people are triggered so hard because this is just a very sensitive topic, or there are so many
yeah,
sensitive topics out there right now.
yeah,
And I just think, okay, so if this is triggering, it's obviously it's not really my obligation to not trigger anyone. But the question is, what do I want? And I think I want a better communication, and I want people to be happy and to understand each other better. So, like, why not contributing to that? So, I want to try that more. And I started today, even before this talk. So it's so interesting that you say all that stuff right now.
yeah,
It's like,
yeah. It sounds like we're on the same page.
yeah,
One thing that might be two things that I find are helpful. One of them, have you ever heard of the compliment sandwich?
no.
Okay, so let's say you gave me a really bad idea. Like let's say you think, this is I'm making this up right now. You say, let's make a drinking glass out of sugar
Ooh, hmm.
because if we make it out of melted sugar, then it biodegrades, right? The first thing I could say, just the most honest thing, is that's a very silly idea because sugar dissolves in water.
Hmm.
So if we make a glass out of sugar, it will melt. But if instead I say compliment, you know, I love that idea because I know that they use, like sugar glass in like movies and stuff. And I've never heard of them using it like for a cup. That's a really cool idea. The one thing that might be a little bit of a problem is the water might, melt the sugar. But I think it's such a cool, way. I think it's such a cool idea because, we're so much pollution and it's so bad. So I've told you the same thing. I've told you that this is a bad idea, but it's sandwiched between, I love that idea,
Hmm.
but it's bad. But I love that idea. Um, and
Yeah.
the other thing is what's called a permission structure. So a permission structure is basically this idea that if I want you to change your mind, I need to get you to the new place with your self-esteem intact.
Oh, yeah.
So like, if you thought something, just let's just pick something ridiculous, right? Like you think, let's say you think the moon you say you think the earth is flat.
Okay.
All right. And if I say that's the dumbest thing ever, something is wrong with you if you think that. Well, now I've told this person that for them to change their mind, they have to accept that up until this point, they have thought the dumbest thing ever and something is
Oh,
wrong
yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
Right. But if I create sort of a story for them that lets them keep their ego intact, it's easier. Like, my best friend used to think the earth was flat, and he showed me all of the stuff that made him think that. And it was really surprising to me because, you see all these like scientists and you see all these documentaries, and it really, as much as people make fun of it, it really, I can understand why you would, kind of be tricked by that.
Yes.
But here's the thing, and here's what helped my friend, blah 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 blah. And now, now in this person's mind, it's like, okay, maybe I was wrong, but hey, it was really convincing, and it was understandable why I would be tricked by that. Now it's like they're more comfortable changing their mind because I haven't attacked. It doesn't involve like an attack on them personally, and I think that can be really, really helpful. And honestly, I think it's usually more fair. It's usually like because
Yeah.
again, it's like people if they watch Fox News all day and they grew up in some place that's very backwards, and they've never like it is understandable to me that people reach those positions. And yeah, so
Hmm.
those are two things that I think really can help are the compliment sandwich and the permission structure.
Yeah, this is great. This will definitely help me a lot already, because it happens so fast that you fall into this spiral almost where people just offend each other. Like the comment
Yeah.
sections are full of people offending each other. And it's so stressful because I just think, what do you guys want? Like, what's the goal? Do you have a common goal probably? Because that would be actually
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think people also there's something that weird that happens where I this it doesn't happen to me and I don't know why. But I think a lot of times people will see like they think that when they're writing something it's different. Like, oh, if I was talking to somebody in
Yes.
person, I'd be much more gentle. But if I'm writing a comment, now I can just say whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I I'm not like that and I don't know why. It's not something I like brag about. I don't think I'm better than other people for being like this, but just for some reason, something about me is that like I when I'm writing something, I'm just imagining the person reading it. It's no different for me than if I said
Yeah.
it in person, which can actually what's funny is it can make me seem so nice on the internet that people think I'm being sarcastic sometimes. So like they think I'm mocking them. I'm like, wow, this is so great. I really love this. And then saying the exact same thing in person, sometimes people are like, that's really blunt. But it's the exact same thing. It's just people have
Hmm.
different expectations, for but I just act the same everywhere.
Yeah, I have a theory on that, and I just discussed th this point with my husband because we would also agree on that, that we are pretty much the same person online and offline. We are always kind, or I'm always kind, or I'm not, but not more unkind than I would also be in real life. Like if
Right.
like not more sarcastic or whatever. Like I'm never messed up, but like whatever I say, I would also say in someone's face, and
Yeah.
that's it, and it never changes. And I have a theory on that, and I think it's like you just embody who you are, maybe. You are just you, and you don't hide behind like your screen or anything. You are not afraid.
Right.
So you're
Right.
basically just safe in yourself.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me. And one of my least favorite things is somebody who doesn't have the courage to be mean.
Hmm.
Like if you're a mean person and you're just on it, you're just like, "Yep, I'm a bad person. I'm mean." It's like, "Okay, at least you're being honest with me." But if you're like a mean person and
Yeah,
then like you only say the mean things behind people's backs, it's like now you're mean and you're a liar. Like at least
right.
now there's
Yeah,
two things wrong.
right. With an anonymous profile without a picture and not
Yeah.
following anyone. I think that's very convenient, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's one thing. It's one thing to like be polite, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying just say everything you think all the time, but there is
Yeah.
a certain way that people do it where you can tell, like, oh, they're just kind of too scared
Hmm.
to do this openly, and then it's like I don't like that. It's like just at least I would rather spend time with a jerk who's just like says
Yes.
nasty things than spend time with someone who just like says it later behind my just tell me.
Right, like
So
because which one is you then? What do you
right.
really think?
Yeah, and maybe that preference also informs how I behave, right? Because that what I want from other people, it maybe is also what I sort of ask of myself too.
Yeah, it's high expectations towards oneself, and then you will also
Yeah,
extend it onto others.
yeah,
Yeah, right. Well, but is this what makes you passionate about debate? Do you like the heat of the situation
yeah.
itself too?
It's a number of things all mixed together. So the first thing is I am sort of an adrenaline junkie. If you Yeah, so like I when I growing up, I did extreme sports.
Mhm.
And then at the very end of my teenage years, 19 years old, I hurt my ankle really badly. I had to get like a surgery on it. And that was the end of my extreme sports. But I still have that kind of desire for extreme experiences. And the same thing that would make an experience terrible for somebody makes me love it. For example, here in the Los Angeles area, Universal, the movie company,
Mhm.
does haunted houses every year,
Yeah,
but
true.
they invest all of their resources. So the haunted house, it's like real. Like they'll do a haunted house based on a specific horror movie, and it's like you're in the movie, right? It's very high quality.
Wow.
And what I do is I'll go deliberately at 1 in the morning when everyone's gone, but they're still open, so I could go in by myself. And then it
What?
doesn't scare me. It doesn't scare me. I'm just like someone will like pop out like ah, and I'm just like ah, like that's really clever, you know. Like and I'm literally like this like the whole time like oh cool like I have a
Amazing.
selfie I took in one of these things where there's this giant like 30-foot monster like ah, and I'm just like
How
so
interesting.
yeah, so there's something about me where I have kind of I have almost like a diminished response to certain things. And then I really love those things, right? So when I'm on Jubilee and I'm debating a famous person and the camera is rolling and there's no do-overs if I mess up, and I know that like millions of people are going to watch, it's kind of like ooh, like I like this. I like this feeling. So that's one thing. The second thing
Oh.
is you meet very interesting people when you do these because they're casted. And so the casting agents find interesting people to do it. Um, and I'd say the third thing is I have a firm belief that these videos are going to happen no matter what because there's people on my side, there's people on the left who
Mhm.
say like don't do this, like People, like whoever it is, right? Like Jordan Peterson should not be in a video. So don't participate because people shouldn't have Jordan Peterson in their videos. But it's like they're gonna make the video. They're not gonna not make the video.
Yeah.
They're gonna make the video no matter what. So it's like if I go and I really prepare, I'm improving the outcome. And so I'd say those are the three main things. I do have a passion for education. I do a lot of volunteer work at like science museums and stuff like that. And a lot of that involves talking to the public. And so to be able to talk to millions of people is something I value because, I will drive myself somewhere to work for free to talk to like seven people. So to talk to millions, it's like, ooh, like that's an opportunity. So there is that educational component in there. But I'd say the three big things are just it's a crazy experience, you make friends, and I feel like I'm kind of doing a good thing.
Yeah, but that's a crazy superpower that you just described. Because I think here we have extreme differences on that one because
Oh, yeah.
I love my peace. So like my high blood
Yeah.
pressure is nothing that I actually
Yeah.
want. Like I'm immediately like, oh no.
Yeah. What's funny is I have for school, I actually have very bad anxiety.
Oh, me too.
So I will get very nervous for like I have an assignment due or something.
Hmm.
It's like the worst thing in the world. But then like again, like going to a haunted house at 1:30 in the morning by myself, it's like, yeah, that's fun. So I and that's where I don't really take credit for it because it's like I don't think it's like I don't think it's like some choice I make or like some, thing. I think I just am this way for some
Yeah.
reason. The same way that I don't blame myself for my anxiety in other areas of my life.
Hmm. Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Do you think that other people who participate in the debates that they share that with you? Like, are all of you high on adrenaline and do all of you like that?
I think all of us who agree to do it again
Yeah.
because every time there's some new people,
Hmm.
right? And I like for mine that I did, there was maybe like 12 new people who had never done it before. And I think I am one of the two people of those like 12 who kept doing it. So I think some people kind of find out it's not for them.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think for the people who do it over and over again, we are all kind of unusual in some way because we are agreeing to be on camera in front of millions of people. And we're agreeing to talk to people who are some of the most extreme people you could imagine
Yeah.
in terms of their beliefs.
Do you actually think that these people who are so extreme and who come from, let's say, the other side, but do you think they have these beliefs for sure, or are they paid to have these beliefs? Because sometimes I question their integrity.
I think it's a mixture. The first sort of baseline principle to look at this with, in my opinion, is the fact that there's a lot more money in being on the right.
Mhm.
Because if you are a billionaire and you want lower taxes, which party does that? If you want, if you want like a different, if you want to be able to pollute more easily, which party will help you with that, right? And so there's a lot the right wing media ecosystem is very bountiful. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I think people organically prefer uh, anything that gives them permission to stay how they are.
Hmm.
So here's an example. I have a close friend who, when we were teenagers, someone yelled at him for wearing a costume that was like a Native American costume.
Hmm.
And they said it was insensitive. And if I offered my friend kind of a more complicated analysis, like, hey, I think it was a little overboard for someone to yell at you, but, we should be sensitive to the fact that, Native Americans, they still exist. They're all around us, especially at least in the part of the country we were in at the time. And it's like, you know, even though you don't mean it to be offensive, we have to separate out what we mean from what we do,
Yeah.
right? And if
Mm.
I don't mean to do something, but it's still bothering people, right? So that's a very complicated thing. You have to challenge your feelings. But if I say, F them, who cares? It's a costume. They're losers, right? That's very
Yeah.
easy. And I'm affirming what they already want to feel.
Mm.
So that I think makes right wing commentary more desirable because people want to be told. I mean, who doesn't like that, right? Who wouldn't prefer to hear you're right, they're wrong, your feelings make perfect sense, right? That's so I think from those two things, from the fact that there's a lot of money invested into right wing media
Mhm.
and people sort of understandably prefer to not be challenged. I think that there are more grifters on the right. Um, in terms of the motivations of the individual people you talk to, I think it varies. So, like, the first person I talked to on Jubilee is named Michael Knowles,
Mhm.
and he is a famous, like, anti-gay person. And what he does in his arguments is he makes these sort of like silly arguments that are not based on religion, where he'll say, marriage has always been between a man and a woman. So it should keep being between a man and the woman because it always was, which is a fallacy. Or he'll say it's not natural for, two animals, like you don't see it in the animal world. It's not natural. One, wrong. And two,
Yeah.
a lot of bad things are natural. Again, it's a fallacy, right? So he is kind of lying, but I think his real motivation is he's very, very religious and he's a very extreme type of religious person because I don't have a problem with religious people like generally, right? But like this guy is a very extreme religious person,
Mhm.
and he thinks that gay people are bad because God says so. But you can't make that argument to the general public. So he's true in what he wants, but he's dishonest. And then I think that there are people who are just transparently lying and they don't really believe anything. A great example is whenever you see a male celebrity
Mhm.
get in trouble for like a sex scandal or something, half of the time they go to the right. Like, do you know
Oh,
who
really?
Russell? Yeah, do you know who Russell Brand is?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah, yeah. So Russell Brand was like a very like left wing guy. A lot of his content was about making fun of God and Christianity. And then he was in like a big like sex scandal, and now he's like a Christian, and his whole thing is being a Christian. And so there are those
Oh,
people where it's like, oh, they get in trouble. Um, and then finally, I think that there are people who just from the start just want to make money, you know?
hmm.
Um, the thing that's sad is even if there was somebody who's a true believer, it's not really good because think about what they're a true believer
Believe.
in, right?
Yes.
Like they might say something like they truly believe that, like all
Yeah.
immigrants are like criminals. And it's like, well, that's that's still pretty bad.
Yeah, that's really terrifying.
Yeah.
I would like I was asking you that with hope, but actually, if the people
Yeah.
are oftentimes paid, because
Well,
sometimes I hear this debates with Charlie Kirk, for example, and he's talking also to such educated people, to great young people, and they give him actual facts, like
yeah.
facts, and he pretends that these facts don't exist. And I just think, is there like is there something not like this information not really going in, or is it
Yeah,
more that
no.
he's paid?
Right, it's the latter. I mean, it's um like there and also first of all, the one thing that might be hope is the people who are on the screen on everyone's screens, right?
Hmm.
The Charlie Kirks and the whoever's, right? I think that for them there's not really hope I do think there's hope for the people who watch a Charlie Kirk video and go, "Oh, that makes sense," right? I
Hmm.
think those people are often sincere and just misguided, and we can change those people's minds. But with Charlie Kirk, for example, so there's something they do when they debate, and this is something that people don't understand, and I think it's a reason why a lot of people end up looking silly when they try to debate like a Charlie Kirk or whatever, which is the more obvious it is that Charlie Kirk is wrong, the more you need to prepare before talking to him because or whoever it is because what they do is they say things that are wrong and you have to know what the wrong thing is and why. So here's an example. So let's do the flat earth again, right? So let's say you go to debate Charlie Kirk and he says the earth is flat and you say it's obviously round. That's such a stupid thing to say. And then he says, and I'm completely making this up, but he
Yeah.
says something like, okay, what about the University of Tokyo study in 1987 that definitively proved that the curve of the horizon is a function of refraction? And what about the NASA director from 1996, Paul George, who said in sworn testimony that it's all a lie? And what about this? And what about this? And this person and that person and this person that. And then you're going to go like, well, what? I've never heard of that before. And he's going to be like, and that's why you need to read a book. Next. And now you're in the person owned compilation, and then you have to remember, as ridiculous and obvious as it is to you and me, that, like, of course the earth is round. In this hypothetical, there's a bunch of people who are convinced it's flat. And so they already are going in with that bias. And then it's like, oh, okay, see, they don't even know what they're talking about. Right. So what you have to know is you have to know that the University of Tokyo study found the opposite of what Charlie is saying. And there's 99 other studies that say that the earth is round. And the NASA director who said that thing on sworn testimony has schizophrenia. And
Okay.
and he wrote that in the thing, right? You have to know the wrong information.
Hmm.
And if you don't, because that's their whole game. Do you believe I'm assuming you believe climate change is real, for
Yeah.
example?
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say that the scientists say that climate change is real?
Yeah, sure, I
Name
can.
them.
I
Name
can.
them. See,
Yeah.
that's what happens. That's what
Yeah.
happens. And in real life, what you can do is you can take your phone out and look it up,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you can't do that. And so that's the whole game of it, and that's what's so frustrating. It's like it's because and that's where the whole thing is sort of a performance. But yeah, that's to anyone who wants to like talk to any, like, if like Charlie Kirk comes to your campus, like, be careful because that's the thing that gets people.
Yeah, I think I would have the audacity to just take my phone off in this
Yeah,
moment because I
yeah,
just think I don't want to win. I'm just annoyed
yeah,
since my childhood if someone tells me I cannot look something up because I always think,
yeah,
I just have
yeah,
so much capacity in here and
yeah.
why do I need to take all my storage when
Yeah,
I
and
do
that's
the
what we
forwarding?
that's what we do in real life. In real life, you say, "Oh, I've never heard of that. One sec." Right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's what you do in real life, and that's the problem with debates.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what their goal is. Like, because do they want to be right or do they want to actually find the answer that is correct?
I think their goal, if you're talking about like the professional people, like Charlie Kirk,
Yeah,
they want a video clip of of somebody on the other side looking silly, so
that's
that
all.
yeah, it's like so there's a type of advertising that is for when people have already bought the thing. Like there's advertising to get someone to like buy a car, right?
Mhm.
There's also advertising to just reassure somebody that they made the right choice.
Yeah.
And I think that someone like Charlie Kirk does both. The first thing they do is they make stuff to like convince people like, oh, these liberals are all dumb and crazy and like mean and silly. Join our side. And then once you've joined their side, right? Well, reality is going to seep in over time because reality has a liberal bias. And so, okay, well, look, there's a new Charlie Kirk video where he's owning them, right? He's owning the libs, and that's right, they're stupid. That's right, they're stupid. And so, like, it's to get people to it's to get people to come over to his side, and then it's to get people to stay there. And you could point out, I think, very correctly, hey, that's not a really good way to make a decision by just watching a Charlie Kirk video. But that's how that's how people are.
Yeah, you watch it once, you watch it twice, you watch it 20 times because the algorithm will also confirm this interest
Mm-hmm.
of yours. So you will
Mm-hmm.
see more of them.
Yeah.
And that's what you will start believing and attracting
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
everywhere. So, yeah,
Yep.
of course. So I would summarize this as okay, so what people like him want is power and control over others because I
Mm-hmm.
don't see any other gain that you'll possibly get out of it. Because whenever I would debate on something, like in my private life, for example, then I would want to come to a conclusion, to a valid, true point, to something
Right.
that I want to have something that feels like a fact or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I don't see it there. So I mean, he
Yeah.
has been proven wrong so many times. The only point that he could possibly have, from my understanding right now, is just to take more people onto his side, and that's just basically having
Mm-hmm.
more
Mm-hmm.
power.
Yep. And that's what the people who give him money want. Because the people who give these guys money, they want people to vote for Republicans.
Hmm.
Because if people vote for Republicans, then it's literally just math,
Yeah,
right? If I invest this much money into these conservative media people, and then it gets me a tax cut, and the tax cut is more money
hmm,
than the money I've invested into these people, it's a profit, right? So, or you could look at it as just preventative. It's like, okay, I could either spend this much money, I could either spend, $30 million on conservative media people, or the left wing takes over, and then I'm going to lose like $130 million, right? So it just sucks. It's just like cold. It's just math.
it's just math. Yeah, but it makes me understand that it's even more important that I even thought originally to have people like you out there who like to debate and who have all these facts, and who like to fact check everything and to basically fight for everyone with that because it's like a huge talent, and you also do everyone else a favor who is lazy like me and who doesn't fact check everything. So I
Yeah.
think that's great that you do this kind of
Thank
stuff.
you. Thank you. And yeah, it's funny. It's kind of like a it's like a Venn diagram sort of thing where, 'cause I'm primarily doing this on Jubilee,
Mhm.
and then Jubilee has, its own interests and things. And I do think, by the way, Jubilee is very controversial. I think that they are sincere. I think that if you look at like the CEO guy, if you look at like what he says about his project, like I found videos of him from like 10 or 11 years ago where he's saying the exact same stuff. And it's like, okay, like I think that they really think that, there is some sort of like net benefit of these videos. Um,
Yeah.
and they want me in their videos, right? And then I think, okay, for the reasons I outlined, right? It's a crazy experience. I make friends. I'm improving the outcome of the video. I'm going to do some educational stuff. Okay, I want to be in the video. And there's just sort of this, whoop, right? We got that
Yeah,
little
yeah.
Venn diagram overlap, and hey, I'm happy. They're happy. Let's keep doing
Yeah,
it.
that's awesome. And how was the experience with Jordan Peterson for you? Like, was it exciting actually?
You
Being,
accept conscience as a guide, and
I
conscience is
think,
one of the defining characteristics of
I think,
God in the Old
I
Testament.
think you're being intellectually disingenuous
In what way?
because
I
again,
asked you if you
hey,
believe that conscience
you
guided
just
you.
asked me a question and then you stopped me from answering it.
I made a
I
specific
characterize
point
it,
that
right.
God was associated with conscience.
I just feel like you kind of retreat into this semantic fog.
It
That's
was
okay.
hilarious because I don't like Jordan Peterson, because the main things are I don't like what he says about LGBT issues, and I don't like what he says about climate change.
Okay.
He doesn't believe in climate change, basically, because he says, well, the climate means everything. And you're saying everything is changing. It's like, dude, like, shut up. And then and then it's a similar thing with like just with like LGBT stuff. He just has dumb opinions. But with religion, I don't really have a strong opinion either way. Like I'm not religious, and we could have a conversation about like would the world be a better place with no religion? But I
Yes.
think for me it's like we have to be practical. It's like people are religious. You know what I mean? like
Yeah.
that just is. And so like let's find the religious people who share our values and team up with them, right? And let's care about like what people want, right? And then also there's a lot of people really close to me who are religious. And if I go on like Reddit or something and I see all the atheists on Reddit say, religious people are stupid and this and that, it's like, well, hey, there's not many things you can disprove with an anecdote. But if somebody makes a categorical claim that like all religious people are blank, 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 and then I could list like 5 or 6 religious people I know who are the opposite. That's actually a valid
Yeah.
use of anecdotal evidence, right? So,
Mm.
so yeah. So on in terms of religion, I was just like, okay, I, uh, I'm not religious. I'm not like a jerk about it. Maybe it would be helpful to have that represented in the video that like, not all of us are jerks. And then yeah, when it was Jordan Peterson, because I don't like Jordan Peterson for other reasons, I've made fun of him a lot, like with my friends. And so it was like my meme was in real life. Have you ever seen the movie The Ring or heard of it? It's a scary movie
Yeah, I have.
where when the girl in the ring,
Tamara.
spoiler alert, everyone, on this like 20-year-old movie. The in the ring, there's this ghost girl, and at one point she
She comes.
crawls out of the TV, and it was like Jordan Peterson had crawled out of my phone. It was like my meme had crawled out of my phone, and he's standing there. Nice to meet you, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is really funny for me. And yeah, so I was kind of amused, and then like I tried to be very nice to him, and friendly and respectful, because that's important for me to represent that in the videos. Because again, people won't understand. Like if I don't act, it's ironically a more accurate way to represent myself. Because if I were just like, I don't like you, people be like, why is this guy so mean? But I'm tricking myself into acting the way I actually do act in almost any other situation. So yeah, so that sort of sets the stage. And then what really quickly became evident was I don't think Jordan Peterson understood where he was. Like I don't think because someone that rich and famous, they have employees who set things up for them, right? And I think one of Jordan Peterson's employees just set this up for him and was like, we're going to drive you to this warehouse on Saturday and you're going to talk to these people, because he didn't seem to understand that it was a debate show. Because what he normally does is he has like a 3-hour podcast where he just kind of meanders forever. And it's like, Jordan, like we have like 5 minutes. Like I'm going to be voted out in like 5 minutes. This is my 5 minutes of time I have. Like, let's cut to the chase. And he's like, what do you mean cut? What do you mean chase? It's like, dude. And so it was just, as it went on, it was just like kind of frustrating, but also just kind of funny. Like, and our sense before the video came out, our sense was that it had gone so badly that we wondered if it was going to come out.
Yeah,
Right?
for him. Yeah.
Yeah, like because like we don't know, right? Because like Jordan Peterson is so famous.
Yeah.
He's arguably the most famous person who's ever been on Jubilee. It's like maybe the only way to get Jordan Peterson on is if you give him like the ability to stop the video from coming out or something. So like yeah, it went so badly for him that we a few of us were like, we don't think this is going to come out. And then it did. And then it's so funny because the people who there are people who normally would like hate me, right? Like super like right-wing people who watch the video and they're like, Greg has a good point. Jordan needs to be more honest. And I'm like, this person seems really nice. And then I click on their YouTube channel and look at their other videos, and it's like transgender Muslim vaccines. And it's like, oh, okay. Oh, geez. So it's just.
But good job from your side then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson brought the world together.
Intentionally.
Yeah.
Was there any response from his side about that? No, right?
I don't think he
Yeah.
knows. Because
Oh,
think about it. My friend Cade, who was also in the video, made this point that Jordan Peterson is in his 60s. I think he's like 62 years old. Like, I don't think he like goes on TikTok or Twitter,
yeah.
right? So I
Maybe
think
not.
probably just asks the people on his team, like, "Oh, it came out. Did people like it?"
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And then like, what are you gonna? You work for Jordan Peterson, right? What are you gonna tell your boss? Like,
Fabulous.
yeah. And then on his podcast, everyone on his podcast handles, the idiom like handling someone with kid gloves.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, everyone on his podcast handles him with kid gloves because they want to be invited back.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
a famous atheist named Sam Harris, and
I've
someone
heard of him. Yeah.
he goes on Jordan Peterson, talks to Jordan Peterson a lot. Someone asked him on his podcast, on Sam Harris's podcast, "You're going to the Jordan Peterson podcast again soon. Are you going to talk about the Jubilee debate?" And he was like, "I haven't watched it, and I don't want to talk about it, and I don't think Jordan wants me to talk about it." And so it's
Okay.
like I don't think Jordan's going to ever find out that it went badly.
Yeah, but I really had a good laugh because at some point I think was it Parker? It was some another guy who asked him, "You don't know where you are right now," and I really
Yeah,
lost it at
yeah.
that point because it
That
really
guy's
felt.
named Danny.
Oh,
Danny, he's great.
yeah, because it was like it felt like an episode from a retirement home, and I felt so sorry
Yeah,
for him at that point because, well, I have a different approach because when I first saw Jordan Peterson a few years ago, I didn't have a bad opinion. I didn't have too much of an opinion, to be honest, because he would reasonably come from one point to the next point, and he would explain something and that made sense. So I was like, okay, so
right.
fine, whatever. But over time, it became so weird to me because he would discuss every single topic, and I didn't really understand why he's so judgmental. And also, like on a podcast with his daughter, and they would discuss like relationship dynamics, and it just kind of weirded me out. But it was
Yeah,
just again also just a personal vibe thing, so I couldn't really explain it. I just understood,
yeah,
not my
yeah.
thing.
I think a lot of times when we feel something, it's a type of a thought that just isn't put into words yet. And so yeah, a lot of people have felt that about him. And
Yeah.
what's interesting is one thing that people on the left do that I don't agree with is the second that we decide that someone's bad, we decide there's nothing good about them.
Oh, yeah.
For example, Dave Chappelle, the comedian.
I've heard about him, I think, but
He's a very famous comedian, like in the United
mm,
States, and he has some really bad opinions about like transgender people.
hmm
At least from the left wing perspective, right?
yeah.
Like I'm very left wing. I'm very pro trans. I
Yes.
think his takes are like disgusting. There's people who have said, "Oh, those takes are bad," and he's not even funny. He's not even funny, and it's like, no, he's very funny, and that's why it makes it even worse that he
Mm-hmm.
has these bad opinions because he's this very funny guy. That makes it worse. And then similarly with Jordan Peterson, if you look at like early Jordan Peterson stuff, I think he's always been kind of silly with like his understanding of these sort of culture war things. Like I think he's always just like he misunderstands something in a way that lets him victimize himself. Like I think that's just sort of his, how he operates. But he also is very charismatic. If you look at like old Jordan Peterson videos, it's like, oh, there's something about this guy where it's like
Yeah.
he really is like enthralling and he really sucks you in. And so he has this fan base of people where that is the image in their mind that Jordan Peterson is like this rock star guy. And that we should be okay to say that there are videos of Jordan Peterson where he seems reasonable and even kind of cool. And that makes it worse. That furthers our point that, oh, this guy who has the ability to be really charismatic and be this great communicator and has this reputation among a bunch of people that he's this like super cool, super genius is saying this crazy stuff, right? That makes it
Yeah.
worse. And like
Yes.
we should be able to say that.
Yeah, thank you. That's absolutely true. I think that too. Like, Well, there are definitely good stuff about him. I agree he's charismatic. As I said, there were points that just made sense, whatever it was, but I remember that I've watched it and it made sense. I think he's one of the few people on the internet who are actually well dressed. So props
Right.
to that. Like I like that. But at some point, like I just felt that something's off. And that
Hmm.
happens to me a lot with a bunch of creators because sometimes I will observe people a bit before I will invite them on the podcast, for example. Like so I
Right.
follow someone and I will watch a few videos because it's important to me that the person who I talk to is actually uplifting, that the intention
Right.
is positive,
Right.
So it is so that's why I'm observing, and there maybe there are many uplifting messages and many things that make sense, and it's like almost easy to be reasonable and almost easy to be logical and to make things sound good. But sometimes there will be people that I see they sell limiting beliefs, and it will come out one way or another, and I find it then
Hmm.
so sad.
Hmm.
And this is what basically happened with him. And he didn't even, I think it was even before he said something that I was disagreeing on. It was just how he lives by example. And I thought
Right.
someone who is such a, who considers himself being such a philosopher, who is so reasonable and who tries to share so much wisdom, he is not the living proof of it. I don't want to be where he is. Like, I don't want to be like mentally unstable. I'm proving myself right. And I don't want to change places with him. And that shows
Right.
me I don't want to listen to him.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, where it's like, if I tell people Jordan Peterson is just this stupid guy who sounds like Kermit the Frog and has never made a good point, and then somebody is watching the videos where he's like, it's important to clean your room or whatever, right? And they find it really inspiring. Now they're going to say, what? No, what are they talking about? Right? No, this Jordan Peterson video really helped me and was really cool. But if I say, hey, instead, if I say, there are some videos of Jordan Peterson where he seems really cool. And I'll admit that. And, he's a professor, he knows a lot of stuff, he's a great communicator sometimes. And he has taken this sort of like classic self help advice and he delivers it in a way where it connects with people. But you got to be careful because once you go past those clips, right, those initial things that help you or that seem cool, underneath all of that, there's really some crazy stuff.
Mhm.
And so don't be tricked, right? Now, I'm acknowledging somebody's experience. I'm not saying you're stupid and you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm saying, hey, I'm acknowledging how you see this, and I'm meeting you where you're at, and then let's walk over together to this new way of looking at it. And I think that's more effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true. That's the whole point. Like what I like to say is the most effective lie is the one that lays just next to the truth. That's why
Mm-hmm.
it's not recognizable. But if everything was a lie, if it was a lie so obviously it would jump in your face, nobody would like this person, nobody would follow this
Right.
person.
Right.
And this means there is some truth in it. It's always
Mm-hmm.
both. The question is how
Yep.
much of which do you have there?
Yep.
And take the best, leave the rest. But some people also just see the good stuff. And as you said, they will
Yeah.
confirm their like lifestyle with that. And they will
Yeah.
also buy the negative on top. And that's something
Mm-hmm.
that we should probably think about.
Yeah. It's a way to establish credibility. If I'm
Yeah.
talking to you and I don't acknowledge how you see things, I'm not going to be able to establish credibility. And then it's like, then what are we doing?
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Another point that I wanted to discuss was religion because
Yeah.
that was what your episode was about.
Yeah.
And like I personally, like I'm not religious, and I like for me this topic is so often like oftentimes too much
Hmm.
because it's just not such a huge thing where I come from. So we
Yeah.
do, or Germany is based on Christian values, but it's not practiced on an
Yeah.
everyday basis. So by
Yeah.
Christian values, I think we all kind of mean kind of similar
The
stuff.
golden rule. Yeah.
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 don't punch anyone in the face, don't kill, don't,
Yeah.
do some ridiculous stuff. But it's basically that, but nobody really practices that. It's sometimes Christmas in the church, but I
Right.
also don't know anyone who does it, to be honest. Like it's like
Right.
lore.
Right.
So it's very loose. And I was like kind of shocked because it was so different in America and people have all their quirky beliefs and everyone wants you to believe something. And I feel super pressured by it. And I didn't even understand that people really take it seriously. So it kind of took me a while. And it turned me into some version of myself that was a little bit like angry because I don't like when
Yeah.
people try to tell me what to think and what to believe.
Right.
So like I came to the conclusion that I do think that religion overall is not helpful or is something that is brings more damage nowadays than good, or that we could kind of drop it. At least that's where I stand right now. But
Right.
I also don't as you said, I don't want to make people feel like they're stupid because probably they need this support system or whatever. So how do you go about it, or how do you perceive religion? Do you think it's valuable still in society, or is it something that is probably outdating itself right now?
Yeah. I think that there's, first of all, I think your feelings are totally understandable. There's a lot about America that can give you culture shock. And I've done a lot of international traveling, and sometimes even just a couple weeks away from this country and then coming back. Like, I remember I was in Japan for a couple of weeks and I didn't have to worry about if anyone had a gun
Hmm.
because that's something you always have to worry about here. Like, the
Yeah.
other day I was, there was in my neighborhood, there was a dog that was loose. It was not my dog, but it was someone's dog. And I was trying to get the dog, and some lady got really mad at me for trying to get the dog because I was in the street trying to get the dog. And it's like, well, what? Do you want to run over the dog? Right. So I was very angry with her. And then I got home and I told my husband, and he was like, remember, people could have guns. You could be shot. Like that's a thing you have to think about. Right.
Right.
And so even spending a couple weeks away from that, and then you come back and it's like, what is this? Right. And so it's definitely, I think, completely understandable to find it really frustrating and annoying when people like are pushy and they
Hmm.
try to like get you to convert, right? A lot of my thoughts on religion, like if we could theoretically, like if I could like do that, and then we have the same attitude as you guys do in Germany, I'd probably do it. You know what I mean? A lot of it though is just for me, and whether or yeah, so like whether or not religion itself is like a net good for the world overall, I'd say it probably would be better if people, work, because you have to also talk about what's replacing that, right?
Hmm.
Because people can be like really irrational without religion, and people can be very rational who are religious. But like if we took away religion and then we substituted in some sort of like secular humanism
Yeah.
sort of thing, right? And like it's like work for the collective good, and but still value ourselves as individual. Like I think that there's probably there probably could be some sort of improvement in my opinion. So I would agree there, but the problem just becomes for me, it's like again, I've met all of these people who are religious, where in every other way they're really smart, they're really thoughtful, they're really
Hmm.
rational, they're really intelligent, and then there's just this thing that they're religious, but then when you look at like their view for the world, right? They want the same things as me, more or less, a lot of the time, right?
Hmm.
They want us to be compassionate. They want us to have freedoms. They want funding for schools, and right. And it's like, okay, so what do I do with this, right? And that for me, I think that if we take the route, not we as in you and me, but just if
Hmm.
atheist people take the route of going just like on the internet, like sneering and like, these look, you believe in a man in the sky, you idiot. Like it's just going to be offensive. And then it's also going to let people create a narrative where they are the victim,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Understand.
And even for me, like as an atheist, my mother-in-law, she passed away last year. Her and I were very close, and she was religious.
Hmm.
And when I hear people say, "Oh, religious people are idiots," I'm like, "Oh, you're calling my mother-in-law an idiot?" You know
Hmm.
what I mean? So it's like it's challenging to navigate. Um, and I think that in terms of like what to do, yeah, what to do about it. Um, I think it's helpful to offer offer the perspective on why, religion might not make sense, and then just kind of put it out there for people to find. Um, my friend Cade does that. He makes a lot of content about how he used to be a Catholic, and then just, appeal to people's like values, right? Like if I was talking to someone the other day who's a Catholic, and he was like, "Well, why shouldn't I vote to have my version of marriage be the law?" And I was like, "Well, imagine if there was a different religion, and that religion voted to make their version of marriage the law, and now your version of marriage that you believe in is legal. Like, how would that make you feel, right?"
Hmm.
And it was like, "Oh, like he'd never thought of that."
That's a great point. It just confirms another point that I just heard, which was if you imagine that you are in some sort of cosmic lottery and you don't know who you will be, you don't know your gender, you don't know your race, you don't know your environment, the religion of your family, you don't know any setting. Like, how would you want to set up the world so that no matter who you turn out to be, who you are born as, you don't lose? And
Yeah.
I think this mindset is like so valuable because it makes me understand deeper that you don't win if you only stick to dogmatically to one religion and if you don't allow anyone else to be. So maybe this would be something like this value-based common understanding. And it can have some roots probably in Christianity and in other religions. It doesn't even matter. Like it is okay. But I just don't think that we have to stick to the story so much anymore.
Yeah, I think that I don't think anyone needs religion.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people think they do, and I don't want to like try to rip that away from them. But I think it. I don't. I think if you were raised and never exposed to religious ideas, but you were exposed to like different ways of thinking about the world that don't require religion, you'll be fine. You just need a way. And one thing about religion that's kind of interesting is like religion's almost like when you go to like fast food, very popular here in America. When you go to like a drive-through and they have like a combo meal where it's like the
Yeah.
drink and the like that's kind of religion where it's like religion's like a combo meal because it gives you
Yeah.
why you should be a good person, what happens after you die, a purpose, social stuff, you make friends from it, right? A community, all that comes from religion. And then if you leave religion, now you need to figure out, why do I need to be a good person? What is my ethical system? How, where am I going to make friends? How do I be okay with what happens after we die? This and that and this, right? And so that's another thing too, where it's like, I think one thing that makes religion appealing for people is like, for example, it's hard to make friends as an adult,
Hmm.
right now. Everyone's just inside and on their phones and in their little box that they live in. And like, I think that the appeal of religion is in part because we have other shortcomings in society. And then religion is kind of filling
The-
that gap.
yeah, totally. I really like this comparison to McDonald's or to,
Yeah.
fast food because
Yeah,
that's true. But on the other side, when you have to figure that stuff out for yourself, that's the five-star kitchen. That's the
exactly.
really good food. And you will actually be happy because you know it's your own decision.
Hmm.
And it's not something that somebody else said
Yep.
you need to do. Like there was another video I saw of Oliver, I think, where someone was debating and advocating for religion because it tells them not to kill people. And I was like shocked. Like I'm not doing these kind of things
Yeah,
because
like what?
I don't want to do that stuff.
Yeah.
I have my own like moral code and my own values, and maybe my environment also adapted this from religion, whatever, but I don't think that that's why I have these values, honestly. Like, no, I think it's rooted more in
Hmm.
compassion and in sustainability and in a
Yeah.
better understanding of how society works
Yeah.
or could work better.
I think that a lot of religious people sell themselves short, where like they will do they'll get sort of, and again, I'm talking about like a regular kind of standard issue religious person, right?
Hmm.
Not somebody who like studies it really deeply and it's their whole, but like just, like an average person who's just sort of like casually religious. They will get instructions from their religion, right? Like be like the golden rule or whatever, right? Um, and then they act that way, and then they feel really good, and then they imagine doing bad things that the religion says is bad, or they do things that the religion says is bad, and they feel bad, and then it's like, oh, see, it's right, but it's like, no, like you're I think you're finding it gratifying to be a good person because we're kind of wired to be empathetic, and
Yeah.
you feel bad when you act like a shitty person because it feels bad to be a shitty person. You
Yeah.
feel good when you act like a good person because it feels good to be a good person. And this might even be the person, I might even be thinking of the exact person who was talking to Oliver in that clip, but one of the like conservatives that goes on Jubilee a lot, he has this point where he's like, well, if you're not religious, then everything boils down to a preference. And it's like, well, if you are religious, everything boils down to a preference. You prefer not to go to hell. That's a preference, right? He's just
But
like,
I
what's your
would
point?
I wouldn't even say necessarily. I would say everything goes down to personal values because sometimes I'd have the preference to go and take a nap, although I have to get some work done, and
Right.
I will still stick to the plan. So I think people who stick to religion so dogmatically and protect it at all costs, they are afraid that their values are not strong enough to stick to them no matter what. Because if nobody punishes them for their bad behavior, if they cannot disappoint a community, religion, or whoever, like if there is
Mm-hmm.
no punishment, they
Mm-hmm.
are not convinced that they can stay strong enough. And I'm pretty empowered. I know that I can do that. And I actually get annoyed if someone tells me that I need someone to watch me and tell me what to
Right.
do, because I know from personal work experience already that I can get things done. So I don't need a different proof.
Yeah, no, exactly. And going back to your kind of earlier thing about how it's kind of annoying and offensive when someone knocks on your door and it's like, you need to join my way of thinking, stranger I just met. You're right. Yeah, you're right. And that's one of the things where it's like, I think that having, I've always lived in the United States,
Mm.
and having grown up here, I felt that frustration, and that was right. Right? That's stupid.
Yeah.
Like what that like this is. But then at a certain point, it's like, okay, this is how it is, right? Like I think I'm just gonna make a choice to approach this differently, because it's very, what's the point of just getting mad at these people, right? and
Yeah.
and
Zero.
and that, but I'm 30 years old. I've always, I've had 3 decades of experience living in the United States of America. I didn't start out this way, right? But I think at a certain point, it's like, it's almost like if you have a family member who has like something kind of wrong with them, and it's like, whatever it is, and then at a certain point, it's like, okay, I'm stuck with this person, right?
Hmm.
Right, assuming, maybe if they're really horrible, then you don't talk to them anymore, but like,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
but if in this, you get what I'm trying to say, where it's like, okay, like, my brother is always really forgetful, and it's really annoying, but like, I still want him to be my brother, and he's going to still be forgetful. So like, how do I deal with this so that I'm not upset all the time?
Yeah. I think I think we have to learn to love people even if we don't like them.
Yep, this guy Pedro Pascal, famous actor, he has this clip where he's like, it's this, I saw it on Instagram, where he's being interviewed, and he's like, I can get along with anybody. That doesn't mean I like everybody. I can get along with.
Yeah, because on the surface there are like these waves and these disagreements and these fights and everything. But I think as long as on a deep level in your essence, you want people's best and you have their back and you there is some sort of love for your environment and for other people.
Yeah.
I think there is room for some healthy disagreement.
Yeah, and for me it's selfish, honestly, at the end of the day. The way I was raised, I was not raised very well in my opinion. I
Mhm.
was and I know I try not to talk about this too much because it's like they don't they can't respond, right? They're not being interviewed, but my yeah, I'm not a big fan of how I was raised in terms of like I feel like I was kind of discouraged to care about people.
Mhm.
And and then I felt kind of dead inside.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
then I started to care about people. And then it felt really good. And so like
Yeah.
when I'm talking to people and I'm like trying to, be nice and like, oh, and importantly, I'm not conceding points, right? Like, because there are some people who do that where they think the way to get along with people is to say, like, let's meet in the middle on this topic. It's like, no, hold your ground on your points, but you know, you can do that in a way where it's like, I got it. You haven't convinced you. I'm not convinced. I'm really sorry, but I appreciate that. This is important to you. If you interact with people in that sort of loving way, for me, I feel better.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel better, and it's like I enjoy my life more. I enjoy even just like I was talking to somebody on the phone today because we were supposed to have a plumber come to our house, and they forgot to send the plumber. So I was home from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m.
Waiting.
because that's the window waiting. I had stuff I wanted to do. They didn't come. I called at 4:30, and the girl on the phone, who obviously it's not her fault. She's just the girl who answers the phone, was really oh, I'm so sorry. And I was like, hey, it's okay. It happens. I'm not worried about it. I've been there. And she really appreciated it. It felt good. I felt good where it was like
Right.
this girl is worried that I'm going to yell at her, and people probably yell at her all the day, all the time. And
Right.
I'm choosing to say, "Oh, it's fine." I feel great. Like, oh,
Hmm.
I love the fact that I'm making this person feel good,
Yes,
right? And
totally.
to me, it's almost like just being aware of human nature and of your own human nature more than it is like a value thing. I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, it does make sense because it goes deeper than a value, a belief, or even like anything learned. It's an actual experience.
And that is where it makes me like not convinced when people say that we need, we need to be sold on how they view the world because, it's worked so well for them. Like, okay, it's great. Hey, I'll meet you where you're at. I
Yeah.
believe you, right? It's worked really well for you. And that is where I try to separate out like a broad critique of religion from individual people, right? If I meet an individual person and they seem like they're otherwise a very reasonable person
Hmm.
and they don't really think anything too crazy, but then they're like religious and they're like, yeah, this is just something that's really important to me and I get a lot from it and I really believe in it. And like otherwise they're a great person. I'm like, okay, you know,
Hmm. Yeah.
I believe you and I respect you and I appreciate you. Right. But then, I think sometimes people who are religious have trouble doing that the other way, where it's like, yeah, like, I understand that you have this general idea that people who are not religious have all these problems, but hey, just trust me, I don't have those problems. I'm good. I don't need your religion. Especially the ones who knock on your door, right? Because there's a lot of religious people who are not going around knocking on everyone's doors.
Although I did have that in Germany too. Like sometimes we do have people who knock on doors. That's like
Oh
the
yeah.
only thing, but we usually don't like that. But what your story reminded me of, like the one where you have this deep sense of just um, taking someone as they are and just doing
Hmm.
something nice and just being kind regardless. It
Yeah.
reminded me of Pete Holmes. You know the comedian?
I know who that is. Yeah, I think I've seen some clips of him, and I get a good vibe from him. He seems like a cool guy.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And he released a video. He's usually a comedian, but he released something that was a little bit more serious. And he
Hmm.
said that he practices something. And I love this practice. And I started doing this. So whenever he looks at other people or animals or whoever crosses his way,
Right.
he practices to think of the other being as another me. So how is another me doing today? Like how,
Yeah.
no matter who it is. And I think that's so beautiful because that's not something that people usually do. Like you won't see a grandma at the supermarket and you will think another me, you know? So I thought
Yeah.
that's a really
Yeah.
beautiful practice actually.
I
That
love that.
yeah, that
Um,
reminds you of this connection that you have and this empathy that you are born with. And we always pretend that we need some external, value system to build this empathy,
yeah.
although we are born with it and we are not empowered enough, or we don't
Yeah.
have this belief in ourselves that it's there, but it is.
Hmm. Yeah. No, really. Another version of that I've heard somewhere is like everyone has a mom, right?
Mhm.
And like, and there are exceptions. There are some bad moms, but like, imagine somebody as like, someone's son or daughter. One thing that I do generally is I don't think everybody's a saint. I don't think everyone's a genius, but I usually my starting where I start from when talking to anybody is I assume they're probably, decently intelligent, right?
Mhm.
I don't think they're an idiot. And I don't think they're like a terrible person. I think this is probably a decently smart person with decently good intentions. And
Yeah.
if you start there, and now I have to try to figure out why someone is how they are, you learn a lot more about people,
Hmm.
right? Like if I meet somebody who is, I'm gay. If I meet somebody who's like anti-gay, and I start with, okay, I am going to, and by the way, no one should feel like they have to do this. If you want to tell them like go f yourself and walk off, that I get it, right? Like I don't blame you, but just as an exercise, like okay, if I assume that this is somebody who is, you know, decently smart and decently compassionate, how do I explain that they're like this? And I've usually found that when you dig deeper like that, you find stuff.
Yeah.
I've never started there. I've never started at let's assume this is a decent person who's decently smart, and then been like, that was so dumb. They're just an idiot who's a terrible person, right? Those people are out there, but I think that they're a smaller section of the population than many of us assume, and I'll do that. I make that assumption. I try to make that assumption even when I don't have the time to find out, because I would rather make the mistake of treating someone kindly who doesn't deserve it than make the mistake of treating someone badly who deserves kindness. And I'll even catch myself like there are days where I drink a lot of caffeine, for example, and sometimes I'm trying to quit caffeine and I'm like cranky, and then I'm like, oh, I'm noticing that everyone's an idiot today. Um, the
Happens.
person, this idiot parked in front of my house in a way where I can't see oncoming traffic. This idiot jaywalked. This idiot was too slow making the left turn. And I'm like, wait, why is everyone an idiot today? What's more likely? Is it that I'm just having this incredible luck and I should buy a lottery ticket today because I'm happening to meet every single idiot in the world? Or
Nice.
is something like, is this a me problem?
Yeah.
And I catch myself like that, right? But all it takes for me to think everyone's an idiot is I didn't get my cup of coffee in the morning, right? So it's like then think about some people are just that's how they are baseline. So
Yeah.
like ooh, that's it's just something that they think about. Like there are people for whom the way that like the chemicals are in their brain,
Yeah.
you and I on our crankiest day, that's them at their best. It's just like, ooh,
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I know. I know. I think about that sometimes that like the sense of self that you have will be very light, and you will be usually like, happy, and just go about your day and have your experience, and like not weight yourself down all the time. And the people who will attack others and be so pushy or so aggressive, it's not shallow. There is an aggression, there is a tension in them. So that's how they feel inside their body. And they feel
Right.
like that 24/7. That would be my personal hell.
Yeah, it'd be
That's
a
the biggest
nightmare.
punishment. Yes.
And I would be completely different. I would not, it would take so much effort for me to just be nice to people if that was my baseline.
Yeah.
And so, another thing in addition to kind of, like viewing everyone as yourself and stuff like that, it's like, I think also just gratitude, super helpful. And I think that if we have gratitude, we can reframe things. Like for example, we redid our bathroom last year, and it's this beautiful tiled bathroom now. And there's one tile that they just did wrong, and it's like pointy.
Hmm.
And like there's this like pointy tile that I step on and it hurts. And I asked the people like, "Hey, can you fix this?" And they kind of pressured me into signing off on the work as it is.
Hmm.
And and it was and I can think about that and be annoyed, or I can say, "Oh my God, I have a I have a tiled bathroom to complain about." Like,
Yeah.
wow. Like I, you know, 10 years ago I was living in like a little rented room, taking the bus, eating canned food. I have a bathroom to complain of. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
wow. And I think that the whether we choose to focus on the glass being half empty or half full is just a function of our mindset. And I think having a kind of a mindset focused on gratitude can also help just keep us more calm
Hmm.
and more happy. And then that puts you in a place where you're naturally going to be nicer to people.
Yeah, I love that. And I also think we never know what something is good for. You don't know what this one little pointy thing in the
Yeah, who
bathroom,
knows?
what it's good
Exactly.
for. I would say it was good for the story, and because someone will probably hear it and feel inspired and understand your point,
Yeah.
like how things can turn out, and that there is probably one negative thing that sticks out, but it makes you understand something deeper. And if it serves something, just that one person
Yeah.
understands it, just that you touch one person's heart, that's already something.
Yeah. Yeah. When my mother-in-law got brain cancer, it was really, really hard. And one of the things was like I got to this point where I felt like I could look at it however I wanted to
Mhm.
justify any feeling, right? I could think, for example, she moved in with us
Mhm.
after her diagnosis, and we became very close. So if she had never gotten brain cancer, we would have never gotten close. But if she had never gotten brain cancer, she would have had another like 30 years of life. And so
Mhm.
I got to the point where I was like, there was a point where it was almost nihilism, where it was like, okay, because I can choose to think about this any way I want, it doesn't mean anything, Like if I choose to think about this in a way that makes me feel happy, I'm just comforting myself. Yeah,
Mhm.
because I could choose to think, and there was a
So
point where I broke through that, which was when I decided, okay, as long as I'm honest with myself about the fact that I'm choosing to look at something a certain way, because it's one thing to delude yourself, right? You don't want to be delusional. Like maybe I could win the lottery tomorrow. Like well, you're not going to, but like within reason, I realize it's okay to make a choice with how I'm looking at something. And that is my mindset. And so I try to be very intentional about that.
I love that. I mean, sorry for your loss. And
Thank you.
still I think you did the most beautiful thing with it. You made a choice. And from my perspective, that's the only thing we can do. The only thing we
Yep.
have is a choice, because it's so easy to fall for
Hmm.
nihilism.
Hmm.
And because once you understand that things don't have an objective meaning, and I think it's quite easy to understand it, because what's good for you can be perceived as bad for somebody else. Just if we look at our capitalist structure, that some people buy something, and in order for them to buy some product, someone else needs to suffer, and
Yep.
or you eat an animal, it's
Yep.
good for you, bad for the animal, even for the
Yep.
plant, probably the plant suffers. So there's always this,
Yep.
objectively. you can think it's chaotic or it has no meaning or whatever. So it's your job to assign the meaning. It's
Yep.
your job to use your experience to create the meaning you want. And
Yep.
that's why it doesn't really move me further into this one philosophical
Hmm.
corner, because I just understand that it's my job. Like, I don't want to submit to one ideology. Like, I understand
Yeah.
that I am creating my
Yeah.
reality, my experience.
There's a song you might like. There's this band, it's a punk rock band called No FX.
Ah, yeah, know them.
Yeah. So they have an album called oh my God, I'm forgetting the name of the album, even though it's like my favorite album. It's The War on Errorism, like terrorism, but no
Hmm.
T. They put it out during the first Bush administration, and
Ah,
they have
mhm.
this song on it. And even if you might be familiar with the song, in which case I'll just be explaining for the audience. It's called Franco Un-American. So the first verse, like the first half of the song, is it's this guy, the character Franco, and he's like, I never really think about things. I don't really care about politics. If I throw a trash bag in the ocean, it's the whale's problem to deal with. Just sort of that sort of thing where he's just very like, I don't care. And then he starts to learn about things. Like he reads some books and he watches, the news more. And then he's like, oh my God, I can't really buy shoes because shoes are produced unethically, and I can't chew chewing gum because chewing gum is made from animal products, and this and that. And he spirals. And then at the end of the song, he wants to leave the United States because he's so like depressed and nihilistic. And the chorus of the song is "That's no way to go." And it applies to both. It applies to like, oh, I'm just not thinking about anything at all. I don't care about anything. That's no way to go. Then also like, I'm just so depressed and the world is so terrible and meaningless. And that's no way to go as well. And the irony of the song is at the start, this guy is not doing anything to make the world better because he doesn't care. And then at the end, the guy is once again doing nothing to make the world better because he's just like depressed and nihilistic, right? And yeah, that seems kind of thematically connected to what we're talking about.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know the song, so I will definitely listen to it right after the episode. I know the
Yeah,
band.
yeah.
I have been slightly connected to the punk rock scene. I was always more in the heavy metal scene, so
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah,
yeah. So punk rock was just a little bit related, but I never deep dived
right,
enough
right.
into it. So yeah, I will definitely do that, and I love that because I love this critical eye of the artists who would, like show both perspectives and nothing is actually the solution. And the solution would be
Yeah,
take ownership. Like it's
yeah.
your life.
I think it's okay to just try to be decent. Like, I don't know what the grading system is in Germany, but in the States we have the letter grading system, right? Like A, B, C,
Hmm.
and then plus and minus. It's okay if you just get a B plus on your ethical report card. You don't have to be a perfect person. Just if you're making a net, if you're improving the world in some way, if the net effect of your existence is something positive, like I think it's okay to just okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Don't try to be because if you try to be perfect, it's like an impossible task, and you're going to burn
Yeah.
out. And like, it's okay to just be a decent person.
Just do
That's
what you
enough.
can.
Yeah, just do something. Just you don't have to be perfect. Get a B plus. That's fine. You passed the class.
I love that. I love
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
Any last words for the audience, like in terms of a recommendation?
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, I would recommend watching this podcast more because I love this
Yeah,
conversation.
me too.
This was something where I would have enjoyed this just as much if it was just a Zoom call and it was
Hmm.
not going anywhere.
Me too.
And yeah, in general, I would just say you are a person. And so if you have a rule for how to treat people, treat yourself the same way, right? If you're like, oh, I should give people grace and I should be understandable with people and this and that, you're a person, so you should give yourself grace, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And a mental trick you can do is imagine if you were someone else. Like what would you tell somebody in my situation? Like just recreate your situation and like there's someone else in my situation, what would I recommend, for them? That's helpful. And then, with all of this, the crazy people who you might see like on Jubilee or whatever, I mean, you don't have to talk to them. you can find other ways to be helpful, but if you do have a sort of conversation, if you want to have a productive conversation with someone who's kind of an extreme person, remember that they're going to start out being very defensive. And
Yes.
so that's where, the compliment sandwich and the permission structure, and those are things that I have found are helpful in navigating those conversations.
Love that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was really enjoyable. And if you ever want to talk to me again, let me know, because I really like this.
I wanted to suggest that myself too. So let's do that again. I really liked it.
Anytime, just reach out.
Great. Thank you so much.
Talk again soon.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.